Discover real stories of hope, healing, and redemption. Join us on a journey to overcome the odds and bring hope to the world, one story at a time. Every story has the power to inspire, restore, and uplift others. From personal struggles to triumphs, these journeys show how hope can transform lives. These aren't just stories. They're testimonies of resilience and the power of a fresh start. Welcome to the Repurposed podcast.
Welcome to the Repurposed podcast. This is really exciting because today we have our first guest on, and it's just a big deal because I've heard about you for a while. I've heard about your organization for probably a few years now. So it's an honor to have you on. We have Jared Hudson. And so I think I found out about you. We were talking about this before we got on here through a mutual friend, Josh Rebels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Back when Hyde and Hunter was in our brick and mortar downtown, he was working on the second phase of the development. And he came over, and stand-up guy, great family man. And he told me about Covenant Rescue Group.
He worked for us. He actually worked for us all the way up until I think last month was his last month. He worked for us for about a year. Yeah, so we had to fire him. He was a terrible. I'm just kidding.
He's terrible. Get him out of here.
No, he left. He went back to full-time policing. He got kind of an offer. He came and sat down with me and said, "Hey, man, this is the offer I got." I was like, "That
can't refuse
that'd be
it.
an offer that you can't turn down."
You cannot do it.
So he wound up going back to that, and he's been great. He still works with us some when he can.
Okay.
Still works with us on some fundraisers, and then acts as an advocate for us outside of full-time work. But he was full-time with us. I guess for about a year and maybe not quite a year, and he was instrumental in doing it. His dad has been our executive director for 2 years now. He's worked and has always worked with us. Heck, I've worked with his dad since I left SEAL teams. But anyway, small world, right?
Small world.
Yeah.
Well, he was definitely an advocate for y'all to me.
Well, good.
So I had, since he told me about y'all, I was like, man, I would love to either host an event where Covenant Rescue could come speak to people, kind of inform us all of what you do. Your reach, because from what I've researched, you're kind of global at this point. You do national,
we are
some international.
We do international, primarily focus on CONUS or continental U.S., but we do go OCONUS, so we do go outside the U.S. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I thought what would be a good idea is to start off by kind of introducing you.
Okay.
Because I'm sure we have some guests that know about y'all.
You. Yeah, maybe. Forget me. You said this is important. Make sure Covenant Rescue Group, that's important. I'm very unimportant. So.
But yet, we've got to also know the people behind it and the heart behind it to really understand the importance of the group and why it got started. So we're going to start off by just kind of reading through your history and how you got started. Okay. I pulled it up just so I didn't miss anything because you've got a pretty...
That's okay.
Impressive resume. Okay, you're a husband of 3 girls.
3 girls, yeah.
A business owner, law enforcement officer, Navy SEAL veteran, community leader. You're the founder and current CEO of Covenant Rescue Group, which we're going to touch on a good bit tonight. A nonprofit. So Covenant Rescue Group is a nonprofit that combats human trafficking and child exploitation.
Yep.
So, wow, that's incredible. And it's such a, unfortunately, huge industry now that we're having to fight against. You are the owner and operator of a tactical training company called the Shooting Institute, which trains law enforcement and military special ops groups. You served in the military as a SEAL operator, sniper with Naval Special Warfare, and was deployed multiple times to a variety of combat zones in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom. And during your service, you earned numerous accolades, including multiple Navy, Marine Corps, Army Commendation Medals for Valor, as well as multiple Navy, Marine Corps, and Army Achievement Medals.
Yep, there it is.
When I read that, are you like, man, that's a lot of stuff in X amount of time? You know?
It sounds like a lot of stuff. I call it symbolism without substance.
Yeah.
it's really, it's just what I did, and went to the military, did the SEAL thing, and got out, finished my MBA, became a law enforcement officer, started a business, started a nonprofit, and here I sit, So.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times, as I was kind of doing my little research, brushing up on my knowledge about Covenant Rescue Group and the man who started it, Oftentimes I think we see all these achievements and we're thinking, man, he's X amount years old. He's done all these things. I feel like I haven't done enough. But I think sometimes what we're seeing is the fruit of the labor, but we're not seeing the process that it took to get there.
Hey, that's actually, there's a lot of wisdom in that statement.
Yeah.
There is, because I'm only 39, and it's, I'm not old. I ain't young neither. My wife reminds me of that. My girls remind me of that. And I say, Daddy, you're a daddy now.
Women
Be
have
careful.
a way of bringing us back down to earth, don't we?
They do. Yeah, they do. But yeah, there was a process. There's absolutely a process just to get to where we're at now. So oftentimes people see, oh wow, look at all of this success, and they think that there was one specific catalyst.
Right.
SEAL teams, law enforcement, 501c3, whatever it is. They think there was one catalyst that brought us to a certain place, but there's really not. It's like you just said, a process, a journey to get to where you're at, and so that's definitely what it's been.
Yeah, and I thought what would be kind of cool to start with is, obviously we're going to touch on your time in the military a little bit, Covenant Rescue Group, which is the main focus. But I kind of wanted to find out a little bit about you, the man behind it, just so we can understand why this all came to be.
Yeah, no, that's easy.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit. Are you a native of Alabama? Were you born and raised here?
I was actually born in Lynchburg, Virginia. So my mom was from Alabama, from Etowah County. My dad, he's from Lynchburg, Virginia. And so they met at Liberty University. Both of them were going to school at Liberty University. And that's where Dad, I don't remember I guess he's got a PhD, I think, or a master's in religious studies. He's a pastor. So whatever it is he got, that's where he got that from Liberty. And that's where Mom and Dad met. Mom didn't finish her degree because when they met, they got married and had me. They had my middle brother up in Lynchburg, and then they moved back here to where my mom was from, and in Etowah County. And then with Dad's work, he wound up moving here to we moved here to the Birmingham area, just a little bit north of here in Gardendale. So I think I was probably 12 when we moved here to Gardendale area, or to Morris. And that's where I spent my high school years, I guess.
Okay.
Here, yeah.
So with the foundation of being a child of a pastor, and then also being the oldest, you said you were the firstborn.
I'm the oldest, yep.
Do you feel like that kind of plays into the career that you had in military, defense?
I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. I've never really. I'm not a deep thinker, I guess. Let's say so. I won't say that I've gone too far into thinking that, but I do know my dad being a pastor. That's obviously not what gets you to heaven. But the most important thing about me is my dad's a Christian. My mom's a Christian. My family, as a whole, grandparents, great-grandparents. I mean, we come from a Christian family. And what that means is, Jesus came to this world, lived a perfect life, died and rose again on the third day for my sins and yours, and it's through him we're set free. So there's a lot of people that would define what Christian means differently, and I like to clear it up. Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through me. That's what I mean when I say I'm a Christian. I mean, I'm a born-again believer in the person of Jesus Christ and what he did for me on the cross. And I've been rooted in that my whole life. I remember at 6 years old when I went into my parents' bedroom, and I'm trying to think. Well, we lived in a trailer. This was in Etowah County. We lived I grew up in a trailer. Just not a poor family, not a rich family. Just a
humble,
just a regular,
hardworking,
regular folks that lived in a trailer. My wife did not grow up in a trailer, right? So she comes from a little more affluent family, I guess. But I remember in that trailer going to my parents' room saying, asking to ask Jesus into my heart, and that's that's what I did. They took me through the sinner's prayer at 6 years old, and doesn't mean I lived a perfect life, but I was able to work my salvation out. I don't have a story of being into, drugs or in a gang or any. I've heard a lot of testimonies, great testimonies, but that's not mine. I was saved at 6. I grew up in a Christian family, and I stayed in my Christian roots, and that's the most important thing about me, because it's the one thing that's eternal. And I have my 2 daughters, my oldest, my 9, and my 6-year-old. My 6-year-old just asked Christ into her life 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
Same thing.
Same year.
Thing. Yep.
6?
They're both, and my oldest at 6. So
Wow.
she asked Jesus in her life at 6. So, and Bible stories before bed, rooted in church. Obviously, they learn from Sunday school, but not just from Sunday school. That's what a lot of parents don't understand is your kids shouldn't just learn from whatever they learn at school or whatever they learn at Sunday school. They need to learn from you. You're their parents for a reason. They have to learn from you. They have to learn from my wife. And so we spent a lot of time training them. My parents spent a lot of time training me and my grandparents. So pouring into your kids' lives. By the way, is this phone buzzing on this table? Is that going to mess up the microphone?
We're good.
I always look at the camera guys and gals back here, kind of running the show.
Because he knows
I
have no idea about tech.
They're the ones that you have to answer. I know because I have to answer to Ben and Steven whenever we do this stuff.
They're the ones that hold us accountable.
100%.
That put us to work.
They're like, look, hey, bro, you've got to stop doing this because I can't do my job when you do this. I'm like, well, that's my job. They go, no, it's not your job. Just change this one thing.
Right.
Take the phone off the table.
I'll save you time, energy.
It's just like when she fixed glasses right here. When she brought glasses and didn't have the water bottle on the table. See, she knows.
Listen,
she knows the deal.
Maddie is an aesthetic girl. She knows what she's doing. She was up there in my bathroom, like rearranging picture frames before you came
candles and stuff out here. I mean, this is it's got the look. Like, they know what this. So you let me know if I'm doing something that I shouldn't do, and I won't do it.
Because I'm like having to withhold from saying amen or clapping.
There you go in the background.
Hey, we can have some comments from the Peanut Gallery.
Are you ready to get? You want to get saved? We'll call you down front here, right?
Hey, for real.
That's right.
Come on to the front.
So I mean, and she gets it, right? Hearing it back there, just you pour into your kids,
right?
But what do you pour into your kid? The most important thing about Jared Hudson, if you never heard my name, it wouldn't matter. Jesus Christ and Christ crucified is what Paul says. That's the most important thing, Christ and Christ crucified. So my first sphere of influence, my kids, my parents, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, they all treated that to me and my brothers and sisters. We were their first sphere of influence, their kids, my cousins, and just come from a strong Christian family, a strong Christian background. And is that what guided me to where I was? Yeah, maybe. I probably had the proclivities to go do the military thing, the SEAL thing. It's just how God made me. And now doing the law enforcement, the business, and the protector thing with child exploitation. So sorry for the long-winded answer.
I love that. Well, and that's what I was talking about as the older brother being the protector, because I know I have an older brother, and he treats me like I'm his child. Yeah.
Now we were for my sister, because I have two brothers and a sister. We were protectors for them, and I remember the last time me and my brothers we played football, we worked out, played baseball. I remember we used to get ready for football season because Brandon, he's 2 years younger than me. I think how old am I? So he'd be 37. I think Brandon's 37, and Clay is, and Lindsay, they're twins. They're 36. So they're the same age as my wife. So they'd be 30. They may be 35 or 36 because I'm 3.5 years older than my wife, I believe. So either way, we're all relatively close in age. We played ball together. Me and my brothers did. And there was that, but we didn't really have to do that. I hate to say it this way, a lot of times me and my brothers would just gang up on other people, right? We just didn't take anything from anybody. Yeah, we were, and not in a bad way. We weren't bullies, but it wasn't, I didn't necessarily have to protect my brothers. My brother Brandon was a pipe hitter. My brother Clay was and still was. And even when I come home, when I was in the SEAL teams, I'd come home on Christmas leave or whatever. My wife came from she has one brother.
Okay.
And he's a good dude. He hunts, fishes, but he's not like me and my brothers. He's not wasn't a roughhouser, but he didn't have a brother to grow up with, to roughhouse with. My wife she just stressed out.
Right.
Seeing the
dynamic.
Because we just fought, that's what we did.
Y'all are what I would call the dudes of Hazard.
The dudes of
Instead
Hazard.
of the dukes of Hazard. Y'all are just
that's what we would do.
Full energy, 100%.
That was it. And I remember my brother Brandon said, I think it was Brandon, we got to fighting in the houses Christmas time and wrestling around. Dad's like, hey, go outside because I can't afford to have you idiots tearing up stuff in the house. And we went outside and fought around. And I forgot Brandon. I think we were just laying out there, wrestling, beating each other up over Christmas time. And not mad, just whatever.
Roughhousing.
Yeah, roughhousing. And Brandon goes, man, I got to go to work tomorrow. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna leave, but I got to go back to a SEAL team. He's like, guys, we're at the age where we can't afford
Hurt
can't
ourselves.
afford to hurt ourselves anymore, or hurt each other anymore.
Our livelihood depends on it.
Yeah, that's right. So that was probably in our 20s. I was probably 22. You know, they were Clay could still hang a little bit. He played ball at UAB for maybe a year or two. So I want to say he probably could have hung for a little bit, but that was about, I'm trying to think how long that was almost 20 years ago, 18 years ago. So whenever that was, we decided, hey, we're done. We're done with this. And so we haven't done that as much anymore, as far as that stuff goes. But yeah, that was, I didn't really have to be a protector. They would come on, they're like, oh, come on, tough Navy SEAL. And they would try to, beat me up and all that stuff. So.
And where was you said you had a sister.
I had a sister.
So where was she at during all of this? She just minded her own business. She would stay inside with our wives. And my brother-in-law, Ian, I grew up with him. He played ball at UNA. He came into the picture after we had decided to stop doing all this. But we ran around with him for a while, or I did before I went to the Navy. And, he's a big meat eater dude. So, if he could, we just have a lot of guys that can, that are like that. But now all of us primarily have daughters. We have, of all the 14 or 15 grandkids, however many, nieces, nephews and all that I have, we have 3 boys. One of them is 14 now. So no, we got 4 boys now because Bennett, the baby, he's the youngest of the bunch. He's almost a year old, so he'd be the youngest. So yeah, but I have all girls. So my brothers and my brother-in-law, they had the boys, and I wound up having all girls. All girls. Yep, that's it. That's the family story. Now, do you see some of that dynamic in your girls? Are they pretty girly girl, or do you feel like there's a little bit of like a rough and tough, hold their own?
My middle one, Ansley, she would be probably the toughest, hold her own, but she's more like me in her personality. My oldest, Everly's, more like her mother in her personality. The 2-year-old, it's hard to see. She's developing her personality, but see, she gets everything she wants because she got 2 older sisters that just give her, that take care of her.
We got to keep our eye on her.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I don't know exactly which way she's going to go, but anyway, yeah. So I do see that they're tomboyish. They like to hunt with daddy or fish with daddy or what. They do enjoy that, but they are girls for sure. Everything's glitter and colors and rainbows or whatever.
That's when they can don their glitter suits to go hunting with you.
That's right. Yeah,
I'm sure that wouldn't distract the deer or the turkey.
Yeah, it's funny watching with turkeys. They like turkeys, but we're not sure how we feel. The girls we're not sure how we feel about killing or when things die or whatever. Yeah. So they're but they. It's funny. It's a funny dynamic in my house, especially. So
yeah. So now you said when y'all were doing all the rough housing and I think you said around 20s. So you were already married and in the military by this point.
Yeah, I went in the military when I was 19.
Now, were you married prior to joining? Okay, so you were in the military before.
I wasn't. Yeah, I was in the military before, and I'm trying to think. I think I got married when I was 20. Well, I was 22 and she was 19. We started dating when she was 21 and she was 18, just turned 18. Like I said, I think I'm 3.5 years older than her. She would probably be able to be better on that check. She's better. Well, my oldest daughter's better with years than me or my wife are. But she just had a birthday. I think she just turned 36.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be right. So anyway, we've been married for 15 years. And I think we're coming up on 16 in December.
Wow.
Yeah, I think we've been married 15, we're coming up on 16, or maybe we've been married 14, coming up on 15. Either way, we're married for the duration of my military career.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how was that? So, I mean, she obviously came into y'all's marriage knowing the career that you had kind of entered into to a degree.
To a degree, because she was young. I was young, but as a pastor, I knew her through my brother's wife, Ashton, knew her through her cousin or so. I don't remember how there was connections there, but my parents knew her. Her grandparents went to my parents' church.
Okay.
And her parents had split up, so she kind of spent, when she was younger, her parents were divorced, and so she came from that home where she spent a lot of time at her grandparents' house or with her grandparents, and that was what built the relationship or started the relationship.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So she must be a pretty, strong woman to kind of come into the dynamics of your family.
Yeah, I would say she's become more strong-willed over the well, no, she's always had a strong will, but she's become more like my family, which is more mouthy or outgoing, right? And she's, she didn't come from that dynamic. And especially coming from a family that she had 3 aunts. Her, her mom's side was, 3 women. Her dad's side was actually 3 boys. But that was a different dynamic, probably like my daughters and nieces dynamic with me and my brothers now. We're different with them than we ever were with each other. So, she probably didn't get to see the rambunctious side of her dad and his brothers. Yeah. So, but she's become more strong-willed. So, yeah, she's definitely a strong woman.
Good.
So, yeah.
Every man needs one of those.
That's right. There you go.
It seems like she's been a part of at least the bulk of your military and your current, and Covenant. I mean, she was a part of the creation of Covenant, right? Like y'all both kind of had a conversation about the need of it.
Yeah, we both had a desire to deal with this, and I dealt with it, and she had told me, hey, if you can take any of your skills or what you learned and help children overseas, then I want to do that. And, she told me one time, she said, I went to Haiti to do some work in like 2015-ish time frame. And she said, put a little Haitian baby in your bag and bring me a Haitian baby back, right? That's what I'm like. So she's always had that desire, but more on which is standard for females. The problem with our culture is we blur lines too much nowadays, right? I mean, it's, men, generally speaking, and again, this is general proclivities. This doesn't necessarily, you will have outliers on both, for both men and women, but men, generally speaking, are protectors, especially fathers, or husbands and fathers, if you do it in that appropriate order, but especially husbands and fathers. Women are, generally speaking, nurturers, right? That's why when my girls get in bed, they like snuggling with daddy, but they want mama when they're hurt or when but when they're scared, they want daddy. And so I've seen that. We haven't raised them that way, but they want daddy when they're scared. Now,
because y'all have stood within y'all's appropriate roles.
Probably
or God-given
so,
roles of you being the provider, the protector, your wife being the nurturer. They've naturally been drawn to y'all for those reasons or for those qualities.
Probably so. I can tell you, it's not that we've necessarily taught it. Maybe we've seen it through us embodying those qualities, or maybe it was just innate in them. It's like my middle brother, his youngest son Bennett. He doesn't suck his thumb. The boy does not suck his thumb, which is the other boys in the family have sucked their thumbs. The girls, I think, primarily have done the pacifier, right? The passy. And when his mother holds him, though, he sucks his thumb. It's the only time he sucks his thumb. So again, it's that comfort, that nurturing comfort. He sucks his thumb, but anybody else holds him, he won't suck his thumb. They were talking about, her and my mom were talking about that a couple weeks ago at mom and dad's house. So just generally speaking, though, the nurture versus protection side, I don't know where we were going with that, but my oldest daughter, I have seen, she is more watchful. Of course, she's 9 now, and you got the 6-year-old and the 2-year-old. If they're out playing with, she's very watchful of cars, of people. Right. She's so she acts as a protector. Of course, being the oldest, it's naturally, we tell her, hey, look, you're the oldest, so you're going to have to watch out for your sister sometimes. Don't let them get on the stairs or help them down the stairs so, baby sister doesn't fall down the stairs or whatever. So we do see that even in the opposite, the sexes are not always, men are always protectors, women are always nurturers, but the natural proclivities of a mother and a father, of a man and a woman are that. And our culture blurs those lines too much, and we try not to. We try not to.
Well, and it's important. And I think probably in the perfect world, each role as a father and a mother has a little bit of a balance of both, because you don't want a rigid, harsh father, because that's going to have an effect on the kids. Right. And you don't want a mother that just nurtures all the time and almost enables.
That's right.
You want a little bit of a backbone or a little bit of a protective quality to her as well.
100%, yeah.
But I agree with you. I think a lot of the issues that we have in this world right now are because and I could get in off on a rabbit trail with this, is because men have almost lost what their responsibility is, what their
Oh,
role
100%.
is. There's
Yeah,
an
well,
attack against men.
There is an attack. It's been, so our culture has, and I say this all the time. I'm going to fix this headset here. Maybe my hair is too long. My granddaddy would say
You
to get
nailed
my
it.
hair cut, especially when it's down here. When I was doing undercover work and it was down to my shoulders, my granddaddy would say, I know what you do, boy, and I won't say much about it, but you need a haircut.
But you need to keep that
100%,
hair right and tight.
And then also with the beard, my dad would always say, you leave, of course we grow beards and do stuff overseas in the team, and I generally kept a beard. I think my youngest daughter, I don't think she's ever seen me without a beard. Well, maybe seen pictures, but my dad would say, somebody steal your piano, boy? And I'd be like, what are you talking about? He'd say, you leave your razor on your piano and somebody steal it? That was just, the old dad jokes, so they always want, haircut and shave. That's what
Right.
you're supposed to have. But anyway, yeah, you see the blurring of those lines in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen it in other cultures around the world, and I've been a lot of places. I've been
Right.
to a lot of countries, to a lot of different cultures. And only in first world countries, I think you were talking about this a little bit earlier. Hey, when we're when you were running your business, right? You were repurposing bags or leather goods or whatever it was, right? But you notice more, instead of having to repurpose goods, there were people that wanted to have more of a conversation of almost repurposing their life, right? Whatever it was, and you've seen that here, but you said something interesting when we were talking before we started the interview, and I'll bring it up. Y'all can cut it out if she doesn't want it put in there, but I'm going to say it.
I think I'm
'cause you
pretty
said it.
transparent. I think I
Okay,
share
good,
just
yeah.
about anything.
All right, good. So, but I thought it was interesting what you said. You said, hey, we don't, we're not, I've got my business, and we're not, poor, we're well off, arguably rich in this country. We're in a first world country. We're not from a lot of these countries where literally they know poverty. They are impoverished from birth. And I don't care what anybody in an urban city said. There are people in our country that are poor, but we are not impoverished.
Yeah, there's still not a comparison.
There is opportunity everywhere. I can't remember the fellow's name. I did a panel with him recently. Good guy. He works at a church over in Fairfield. Grew up in Fairfield, got out of Fairfield, I think he got into finance, and he's back in Fairfield. That's where his ministry is. All that being said, he said, no, there's always an opportunity out. I don't care what anybody tells you. He said, people from my community, you hear your skin color, oh, you're black, you're down because of the system, you're oppressed. He said, no, that's bull crap. That's what he said. And I thought that interesting, because I do believe that's true. In the United States of America, that's why all the world's trying to come here. Forget the
Right.
open border situation where they're pouring across.
Right.
People want to come here. Why? Because there's opportunity here that doesn't exist anywhere else. And that's what I've seen. Now, I'm going to get
And
back
those
to
who say they want to leave won't leave.
No, they don't leave. No,
Right.
100% they don't, right?
Right.
Now, we see that. And you said that earlier. You said that when we were talking. You said, we're well off. It's not, we're arguably rich. You're right. We are. I'm not starving. I don't suffer. Well, no, I am when I do the morning fast.
Right.
and you hear my stomach
Right now,
growling.
currently, we are.
By choice, we choose to eat
Which
less,
is a
right?
luxury itself, right?
It is a luxury itself, because there are, I've been in places where there are people who they would, it doesn't matter what it is. Hershey's bar, it could be a piece of corn, it could be, bread, carbs, that's what people want to cut out. It could be anything. You give it to them, and they're going to take it, they're going to eat it. You say, hey, do you want something to drink over there before we start? And I say, yeah, I'll take a water, take a little bit. And she said, hey, do you want me to fill that cup up because the bottle didn't fill it? I said, no, I might get some, later, but we're not worried about it. I'm not worried about it. There are people, and I've been in situations in my life where you drink the water that you have in front of you,
Right.
because you're going to dehydrate for sure.
And that might be the only bit of water you have for a minute.
You might as well get it before you dehydrate.
Right.
We don't make it last. We don't sip on it. No, they hammer it and they move on. And I've been in situations like that, even overseas with some work that I've done, where you can literally smell water. You can, you look at it and you desire it. And maybe we'll tell one of those stories or whatever.
Yeah.
But the point is we live in a country. And we live in a first world country, a Western European society that allows us to worry about things that we wouldn't have to worry about if we were starving. Does that make
Right.
sense? And so I think that's where the burden of our life often comes from, is when we don't have problems, we create problems.
Right.
We create issues. And sometimes those issues are even bigger than just the issue of being able to go out and find food.
Right.
The most freedom I have ever felt, my wife doesn't get mad necessarily, but she doesn't understand it, I guess. And she'll say that. She said, I don't understand your mindset in this. The most freedom I ever felt was in a combat zone. I wake up, I work out, I eat. Somebody's going to kill me or I'm going to kill them. Very simple.
Right.
I loved it.
Right.
It was great. I didn't
Cut and dry, black and white.
Super
Yeah.
easy. I didn't have to worry about stupid stuff like insurance or cell phone or, is Lauren going to be mad at me because, I got mad and had a bad tone or yelled at her,
Right.
or whatever it is, right? Or embarrassed her at a dinner with something I said, which, I regularly do. And it doesn't mean that, that she's in the wrong and I'm in the right, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm in the wrong and she's in the right. But those things that we often create issues out of that 100 years ago, that wouldn't have been an issue, right?
Right.
But because again, we have the luxury
And the freedom.
and the freedom
and
to
the time.
and the time
Yeah.
to sit around and think, and it's a scriptural principle. I said I'm a Christian. I often
Right.
use a lot of scriptural principles because again, the eternal is more important than the things that are not eternal, right? This life is a shadow, is what Scripture tells us. The psalmist says it all the time. That we're a fleeting vapor. We're like Christ says, we're like grass that's burned up in the oven, right? We're here today and gone tomorrow. That's how short our life is, right? So the brevity of life is there. I heard a pastor preach on this recently, I think, right? The standard, Baptist, 4 points or 5
Right.
points or whatever, right? And I think one of them was the brevity of life and the reality of death. Wow, that's powerful. Death is happening. It's
Right.
appointed to man once to die, and then the judgment. So that's a powerful thing that we have to think about when the people on the camera see me looking over. I'm looking at the camera people. I feel like they need to be involved in the, except for my man over here in the baggy shirt. He's got this big buck on his shirt that says baggy. That's because that buck needs to be bagged, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's got about 150-inch deer right there. That's why it says baggy, because he needs
Right
to be
there.
bagged. Yeah, bag that buck. That's a toad of a deer on that shirt. He's over here texting or whatever, so maybe he's not listening, but she's into it. I
Yeah.
can tell she's into it. She's
She's
ready to
my
get
girl,
That's
yeah.
right. So if you see me looking over, that's what I'm doing. But our conversation's here.
Yeah.
So the brevity of life, the reality of death, because it's appointed every man wants to die. That's powerful. Heck, even Jesus Christ came and died. And if he
Right.
had not died, he wouldn't have risen again, which is the whole point of it, so we could have eternal life through him, right? Through one man's disobedience and sin came death and sin to all, but through one man's obedience and resurrection from the dead comes the opportunity of eternal life, right? Ultimately in Jesus. And obviously it was his obedience. So I say all that to say, we get outside of that in the world that we live in. I think it's Festus that tells Paul, and this is the scriptural principle, what I'm getting at, Festus tells Paul, all your learning has made you mad.
Right.
Too much learning, and even Solomon, the wisest man ever, said that. Too much learning is not a good thing because it can drive you crazy. And I think that's where we're at in our culture. We have so much luxury. We have so little problems that we literally create a problem that doesn't exist. Because we've got to have, because if we don't have friction, if we don't have sharpening, we feel like we're dying, which drives us even more crazy.
Well, and prophetically, it says that in the end times, there will be an increase of knowledge. And I can kind of attest to that because, I can get fixated on watching, prophetic videos, watching history
yeah.
that goes back into like what was going on during the time of the disciples, what that meant, what that looks like, what's the Hebrew, Latin, whatever. And it almost causes confusion to a degree. And
in Romans, it says, claiming they were wise, they became fools.
Fools.
Yeah, I think it's Romans chapter 5 that says that.
Well, and I've
Powerful.
even noticed like the effect it has on me. And, my husband and I were believers, we're Christians. He has a very strong faith, almost like an experiential faith with Christ. Is his biblical knowledge 100% no. But he, over the course of his life on his own, and then also with us as a couple, has taken it upon himself to read through scripture. But sometimes he'll look at me and he'll say, hey, what does this mean? Or who is this? And because I've listened and accumulated so many things through my studies, I'm almost sometimes it's hard for me to sit down and have just a simple answer for him. Because
powerful.
I've just taken so much time to just, and it's because I love it. It's not wrong, but I think there's a beauty to the simplicity, a simplistic faith. And see, I love to dig down and to learn and
Well,
to
there
study.
should be. Then that's philosophical knowledge, right? There should be philosophical knowledge, and there should be experiential knowledge. Not to ramrod this or go too much further off course than we have, but you just mentioned it, and I'll cover it. Job. Everybody wants the book of Job. It's a hard book. It's hard to understand, right? We see Job, and God says about Job, He says, "Have you considered my servant Job, who is blameless before me?" Wow. And there's no one in his generation that's like him. That's how blameless he is.
Wow.
Now, is that contradictory to what the rest of the Bible says, or other times in the Bible, there's none righteous, no, not one? Right? That's what the Bible tells us. Right? We hear the psalmist says that no one before you is righteous. It says our righteousness like filthy rags before God. Yet God says about Job that he is blameless. It doesn't mean it's contradictory. It's just God saying that man right there, he honors me. And just like for Abraham in Genesis, where it says he had faith in God, or he believed in God and was counted to him as righteousness, that's the same thing God's saying about Job, because what did Job do? It tells us what Job did. Job honored God with his lips, and it says he never dishonored God with his lips and what he said. It said, all this, Job did not sin with his lips. That's what it said. He never dishonored God in all that he suffered later on. He had faith in God, and he even offered sacrifices for his kids in case they sinned against God. Wow, that's powerful, right?
Wow.
So for him and his kids, and he had philosophical knowledge. His buddies said that, said, hey, you stood before men and you said, do this, that, and the other, and it will be okay with you. But he didn't have experiential knowledge until he did what? He suffered greatly.
Right.
And God said, have you considered my servant Job? Satan says, yeah, I've looked at him, but you won't let anybody touch him. God says, do everything you want to him. Don't touch him. Kills his kids, takes his riches away, destroys his wealth. Everything that he had's gone. Except Job is physically fine. That's the first thing that happens to Job. And in all this, Job did not sin. Satan goes back to God. God says, hey, have you considered my servant Job? Satan says, yeah, but take a man. And so Satan's doing the same thing before they did the first time. You've given him all this. That's why he honors you.
Right.
Well, God takes it away, allows Satan to take it away. Satan takes it away. God says, you consider him? And Satan says, well, yeah, you know what? A man doesn't matter. His stuff doesn't matter. Let me touch his body, he says. Do whatever you want to him, but you can't take his life. Because God is the ultimate life giver. He is life, right? He's the God of the living. And ultimately, when Jesus rose from the dead, he became the God of the living and the dead, right? So that's even more powerful. But he says, yeah, you can do everything except take his life. Satan goes in and creates complete suffering on Job through God allowing it. Job's buddies come in. And at the end, even after God talks, all Job's buddies talk, God's been silent. And then God finally answers Job and says, who are you? Were you there when the world was created? Were you there at the foundations? Do you know where the mother deer gives birth? Well, that's powerful. Do you know where the mountain goats bring forth their young? Do you know where the birds are in their nest? He says, where the young birds cry out to me for lack of food, or the lion, the young lion who is starving. Do you know where they are, Job? Tell me. How about Leviathan? Do you know how to rouse him? Because if you do, you only do it once. Why? Because he'll kill you.
Right.
And so as he goes down through that, it's powerful to hear what God says, because he does all these things. He takes care of the animals. The young of the birds cry to God for their food. Wow, that's powerful. We think they're crying out to their mothers. God says they're crying out to me so that I can send their mother to feed them. Have you done any of this? And what does Job say? Woe am I. I know none of those things.
Right.
That's what he says. And at the end of it, God says, Job, you've answered correctly. And he levels an accusation against Job's friends and says, you have not spoken right about me. Now, those guys spoke actually what we would consider a lot of wisdom through philosophical knowledge. Job had wisdom through philosophical knowledge, but he says, you haven't spoken right about me, but like my servant Job has. And Job interceded on their behalf.
Wow.
After it all, so they could be forgiven for God, just like we see going on with Moses. So I say all that to say, Job had philosophical knowledge, but he didn't have experiential knowledge. And it wasn't complete until Job had philosophical and experiential knowledge. But what brought experiential knowledge? Suffering.
Right.
Then we look at Jesus Christ. God had philosophical knowledge of everything because he created everything.
Right.
The wisdom of God, the Logos. In the beginning was the Word, the written and the unwritten Word of God. But it wasn't until he came to this earth physically, verse 14 of John chapter 1, the Word became flesh and dwelt among men. It wasn't until he came to the world physically and experienced it. He didn't deal with suffering because suffering still has to exist. We have the experiential knowledge of sin. Why? Because we sinned in the beginning through Adam. We have experiential knowledge of that. God doesn't because God is perfect. God has not sinned. What did God have to do? He had to come and have physical, experiential knowledge of what sin is and what death is so he could conquer sin and death.
Right.
And that's the purpose of Job. I say all that. I know it's a bunch of
No,
crap
listen,
I just spit out.
I could talk about this all day, so you're good.
So it's very simple. We need to have philosophical knowledge and we need to have experiential knowledge. You would never want to learn from a sniper who has knowledge of the sniper rifle. There's plenty of guys that have
But
that.
has never shot it.
But has
not
never
practiced.
shot it.
Yeah.
Doesn't have experiential knowledge of what the sniper rifle actually does. And that's what we see going on in our world. We have people that have a lot of philosophical knowledge. Man, these universities around here are full of it.
I was thinking the same thing.
Churches are full of pastors that have that can spit this, right? Schools all over the nation are full of it. Our nation is full of people with philosophical knowledge, bookwork, but they don't have experiential knowledge. The best example I can use after all this scriptural stuff is Rodney Dangerfield. You know who Rodney Dangerfield is, right? I don't know what the movie is, but he goes to school. I think it's called Rodney Dangerfield Goes to School, but we should look it up, right? And Rodney Dangerfield does this. He goes, hey, we got the guy up here talking about the widgets, and all I know is that unless you sell the widget, blah, blah, blah. And it's the funny thing because everything he says is completely against what the professor of the business school was saying.
Rodney Dangerfield, back to school.
Back to school.
Back
That's
to
it.
school.
And he makes fun of the professor because Rodney Dangerfield was a big businessman in this. And he knew how to make and sell a product. And everything he was saying was completely opposite of what the professor was saying, who was saying, well, this is what you got to do to make and sell the product. And he's like, this guy ain't ever sold nothing.
Right.
That's all I've done. And so, and he totally revamps the school, right? So that's the whole purpose behind it. And that's what I'm saying to you here. In our culture, we have a lot of philosophical knowledge, not much experiential knowledge.
Right.
Doesn't mean that philosophical knowledge is bad. You need it.
But you've got to
You need it for
support it with the
understanding because you have a lot of people. Yeah, it supports your experience. You have a lot of people that have experiential knowledge, but they don't have the philosophical knowledge, so they can't put it together to make it work. And that's what God did for us on the cross in life and death. So it's simple. What's your understanding? Zeal without knowledge. Proverbs 19:2. Zeal without knowledge causes you to miss the mark. How much knowledge do you have? Because I can be motivated, but if I don't have knowledge, I'm going to miss the mark.
Right.
However, I also have to have that experience. I've got to have the real world experience of it. And those two things together make life simple.
Well, and I think that's why, a lot of times people are like, well, why would God, the critics of Christianity, why would God send a son to this earth that's just sinful and terrible? And well, it's just for that, the experiential.
Yeah.
He can't, Jesus provides us the opportunity to have someone to relate to, a father that's relatable.
100%.
And I think even I went to Israel with a wonderful couple, and they have just become dear friends, role models for me. And it was funny because when I first met them, we had to do these like little group activities. And I remember seeing them being like, I just don't feel like I have much in common with these people. By the end of that trip to Israel, I was like, these are the only people I want to hang out with. They were just so full of the Holy Spirit.
The couple that you went
the couple,
with. I got you, yeah.
Rodney and Mary Leah. And I remember just talking about the experiential, and then also like Job having the freedom to either still remain righteous towards God or to forsake God, Jesus was given that opportunity at the Mount of Olives, the Olivet Discourse. I think the original language, when it describes Jesus like crying out to God, it says, not my will, but your will. The wording that was used there was a word that meant he still had the choice to reject the cross.
Oh, yeah.
So even through the torment, even though he was God's son, he came to this earth to live it in a human body, which means he was open to sin, which he did not. Like he came into contact with the ability or the opportunities to sin. He did not. And then he even had the opportunity to say, no, I'm not going to go to the cross. And he still did.
And not even reject the cross, reject obedience to God, which is what Adam did, because Jesus was the second Adam.
Right.
The first Adam, the Son of God, and you have Jesus, the second Adam, Jesus, the Son of God, right? So you see the first two, both in the flesh, obviously. And Jesus wasn't worried about the God portion of him being able to defeat sin and suffering and death. It was the man portion, the suffering that the physical had to go through. Please, if there's any possible way, I know everything is possible with you. And if there's any way possible, let this cup pass from me.
Right.
But here's the key, not my will, but your will be done. Why? Because the spiritual, the Godhead the eternal is more important than that in the physical. The physical, I mean, it's like the Matrix, right? And I hate to say that because you got a lot of people saying we're in the, but it kind of is.
Right.
And there's a lot of truth to that. Well, maybe not a lot, maybe a little bit of truth to that in the spiritual aspect. If I'm killing this guy's microphone over here, I know he's going to be mad at me. Already talking about a bag and a buck on his shirt. Now I'm hitting this stuff. Now I'm turned away from the camera, so I'll get the side profile. But I'm working.
This is a realistic conversation. It doesn't have to be perfect.
It's not even an interview anymore, right? We just turned it into a sermon.
Just friends hanging out, sermon.
So, but anyway, I say all that to say you're exactly right. So you said going all the way back to kind of what took me off down this trail. You said, and my husband has a lot of experiential knowledge of his relationship with Christ. That's what makes it real for him. And you said you have a lot of philosophical knowledge, right? Because you spend a lot of time learning, reading, listening, whatever it is, right? Or maybe all three of those together. You have to have both.
Right.
I will say this, and you have to have both. The benefit of having a husband-wife relationship where you become one flesh is he has one, you have one. Well, now together you can grow in both of those, right? But you have to have it individually. I can say of all of that, if there's anything you can learn about Jared Hudson, it's the person of Jesus Christ. My family, by the grace of God, raised me with a good foundation and philosophical knowledge of the scriptures. I can't tell you how many times I read the Bible all the way through.
Right.
I do one a year for my daughters. I write a commentary from their daddy to each of my girls. I'm about to finish the one for my middle daughter. I already done one for my wife. I've done one for my oldest daughter. I'm about to finish the one for my middle daughter, and I'll do one for my youngest daughter. And I've asked God, keep me alive long enough to finish those.
Right.
At that point in time, if I can stay alive longer, great. But if you want to take me, take me.
Just let
right?
that be
That's I want to finish
goal.
those. And so that's the goal, to finish those for them. And so, I've got a lot of philosophical knowledge, but I also have a lot of experiential knowledge from the SEAL teams, from law enforcement, from real world work. And the problem that we have and why we can blur those lines so much is we live in a world that gives us so much philosophical knowledge with no experiential knowledge. And so those lines are blurred. The fact of the matter is, and this is just getting really easy, very simple. The fact of the matter is that the Avengers model, these chicks that can do all the same thing these dudes can do, doesn't exist.
It's not possible.
It's never existed.
Yeah.
It's not possible. They're not the same. It doesn't mean that they're any less, because I've got 3 daughters and I want them to have the most unbelievable opportunity before them that anybody can imagine. I would do anything for those girls. I'd do anything for my wife.
Right.
But I also want it to be in reality. And the reality is those baby girls, they can't be a Navy SEAL. You know how I know that? Because I'm a Navy SEAL. Because I was a Navy SEAL. Not only can they not be that, I don't want them to have to experience that.
No, I was about to say that too, yeah. Because of your experiential
Because
knowledge.
of my experiential knowledge of it. If I had a son, it's different.
Right.
I might want him to, I might not want him to, but I know what it goes through, and I've seen the difference. That makes sense. My nephew comes to me and he says, Uncle Jared, I want to go be a Navy SEAL. All right, well, this is what we got to do.
Right.
If my niece comes to me and says, hey, Uncle Jared, I want to be a Navy SEAL. No, ma'am, you need to reset yourself.
Right.
That's not how God made you.
And that's important to have, whether it's parents, family members, friends, role models, that kind of can speak to you in a loving way, but redirecting you back into who you were
truth.
created to be
That's
and the
right.
truth. And that was something that I wanted to do with this podcast, is because, talking about the blurring of lines and everything, I mean, nothing is clear. And I mean, to the point of even the definition of truth, it comes down to, well, your truth is your truth.
And
but
then
my
it's not truth anymore.
today might be different than my truth tomorrow. And so then where are we at?
That's exactly right. You're hitting the nail on the head. 2 + 2 is always 4.
Right.
Regardless of what anybody tells you. When I add these 2 fingers over here to these 2 fingers over here, I've got 4 fingers.
Right.
No matter what anybody says, it's that simple. Okay? And so there's never well, your truth is that this is 2,
Right.
and my truth is that this is actually 4. No, sorry, my bank account doesn't work that way.
Right. I wish it would.
The IRS doesn't work that way when they want their taxes. They're very much black and white when it comes to
Right.
taxes. Very much no blurring the lines of how much money you owe us on your federal income tax.
Right.
Because if you do blur the lines, what do? They show up to get that money, or they put you in jail when
Right.
you can't pay it. One of the two. I mean, that's just the way it works. So why do we do that with the things that are the most important? Whether or
Right.
not the federal government gets their income tax is not the most important thing. Now, they would say it's the most important
Right.
thing, but it's not the most important thing. Whether or not this individual right here, this person I'm talking to, my daughters, my wife, me, Jared Hudson, whether or not we know exactly who we are made to be, ultimately in the person of Jesus Christ, is the most important thing. And that's why we see so many issues going on in the world right
Right.
now. That's why we see so many men targeting little kids.
Right.
We work in CRG. That's why we see so many lives destroyed through that. That's why we see so many young men and young women growing up and not knowing what to do. So many men who push away their call to be the leader, the protector, the provider that they're supposed to be. And so many women having to embrace that, even though that's not what, and an unbelievable burden being placed on society. And then what happens? People can't stand the strain. Suicide through the roof. Kids outside of wedlock through the roof. Families broken down. And just so much confusion.
Violence
Through the roof. Drugs.
seeking
Because they're
happiness.
looking for everything else except for the one thing that can fix the problems.
Right.
And that one thing is the person of Jesus Christ.
As a
And-
father.
Say
Which
that
is
again?
as a father, which is the important role. Because you
100%, that's right.
You see the effect of the blurring of lines. And I think really, and both parents are important, but I think there is a responsibility that a father holds to maintain
yeah.
the cohesiveness of a family unit and a
my
community.
daughter told me this. You're exactly. My daughter
Yeah.
told me this the other night. She said, "Daddy, can we please sleep in your bed?" And I said, "No, y'all all sleep together." No, they always get in our bed by like
Right.
11 o'clock.
The whole
You know?
process. It's a part of the evening process.
100%. But we do our Bible stories and they start off in their bed. And then on the weekends, and sometimes they sleep all the way through, but on the weekends, we let them sleep in the bed with us. But I'm like, no, y'all need to. And my wife she's not big on the kids, at least starting out in the bed, but we let them get in the bed with us. Sometimes the 2-year-old fusses enough that she gets in the bed if the other two are asleep, but we try to, hey, y'all are in your bed. But see, they all three sleep together. So they're all in the same bed. They don't all sleep. They've got their own beds, but they still pile up in the same bed, So, and I've got buddies overseas that have houses. Like I've got a buddy in Uganda. He actually lives in southern Sudan and works for the South Sudanese military. Well, they have one home, probably about the size of this room right here. That's their home. Maybe not even quite this big. Of course, they all sleep together
Right.
in the same bed. That they don't have that luxury. And we try to show our girls that this is a luxury.
Right.
But it is interesting to see that. Can we sleep in your bed? No, you can't. Mommy and Daddy are going to sleep in their bed, and you're going to sleep in. And they say, you're going to sneak and watch a movie. We're not sneaking. Yes, we're going to watch a movie together, but y'all are going to be in bed. So it's funny, like
Without
as you're having
you.
yeah, that's right. That's what they say. They say, why do you watch a movie with us? You're sneaking around watching. No, we're not sneaking. We're going to watch a movie that we want to watch because we don't want to watch hours of
And you're
movie.
like, wait, why do I even owe you a a response to
100%.
this.
We don't owe you a response. This is what I said.
And
So
they're like, we win.
they stay in their bed. But this is what she said to me the other night. She said, Daddy, I'm afraid if somebody can get up here. I said, baby, nobody's going to make it up those stairs. They have to go. She goes, what if they get a ladder and go in our window? So she's now processing this thing. And I said, nobody's going to be able to get in there. She said, okay, we'll do this. You can let mommy sleep downstairs in her bed, but you sleep up here in our bed with us. I said, why
The
do you want daddy?
negotiation.
Yeah, that's what I said. This is not, you're about to get spanked. And we're going to put you to bed. And I don't want to. So she says, I said, why do you want mommy to sleep downstairs by herself and daddy sleep upstairs? She said, well, because me and my 3 sisters can't protect us if bad guys come in. Mommy can't protect us if bad guys come in. But you can. So you just sleep up here. No, I'm not doing that.
Leave mom out in the cold.
Yeah, leave mom downstairs in the bed by herself, which mommy celebrates.
She's like,
most
please.
of the time we sleep there. The girls all pile in the bed with me downstairs in our bed, and mama will go sleep in one of their.
Yeah.
Actually, Everly's got the most comfortable bed in the house. It's a full size bed. It's an unbelievable bed, unbelievable. But anyway, all that being said, they see that and they understand that, so they think that. Now, that being said, Daddy cooks. And Daddy gets up earlier, definitely earlier than Mama does, and definitely earlier than the baby girls, except for the 2-year-old who likes to get up early, earlier than everybody else. 5:15. I get up about 5:30, 5:45. 2-year-old, Daddy up.
She's just
Daddy
making sure you
up.
stay on
Can I
top
get
of your
toast? Can I, whatever she wants, milk. So Pop-Tart. So she, if Daddy cooks breakfast though, let's say Daddy cooks breakfast. What do they say? This ain't as good as Mama's. I don't care. You eat that.
You'll eat it and you will like it.
Then go wake Mama up and tell her to cook and see how that works out for you.
Yeah.
So, but again, because, and I don't even know, it's say bacon and eggs and pancakes. And maybe Mama does do that better than me. I know I enjoy it better when she cooks it as opposed to when I cook it.
It's always better when someone else makes it.
That's right. But there's that nurturing aspect, right? Daddy cooks it. It doesn't look the same. And I know it doesn't. My wife will fix something. And it looks way better than what I fixed. Just literally in the literal presentation. Like it really does.
Right. And that makes a difference.
And it does make a difference. And they see that. There's a napkin there. There's a spoon that they like. There's a fork. There's the right color plate. So all of those nurturing things and all those nurturing aspects that we've been talking about the whole time that Mama brings to the table that Daddy doesn't. And I know my dad used to do the same thing. And my mom would fix something that's way better. Now that they're older, I always tell my dad, my mom is what they call grandma. I say, hey, you know what, Dad, you're going to make somebody a real good grandma one day because he will put out he does a good job now with the grill and doing all this, I mean, it's unbelievable. And it's funny seeing that transition get older in life, the more nurturing side of a grandfather.
Yeah.
You do see that. And the girls love that. And so anyway, all that being, getting back to on topic, and we can move to the next thing. I'm sorry to ramrod all this.
I love this.
With what we do, or at least what I do, trying to do, is make sure that my girls are raised and my family and anybody in my sphere of influence knows that there are specific roles, just like when I was in the SEAL teams, just like we are with Covenant Rescue Group. There are very specific roles of each individual, whether you're a man, a woman, a child, whatever it is, right? Doesn't matter who you are. There's a specific role. There's a specific thing that God has placed on you, a specific calling that God has placed on you. If everybody was supposed to be a Navy SEAL, then of 364 dudes that started with my class, 31 wouldn't have become Navy SEALs. All 364 would become SEAL. If everybody was supposed to be a doctor, then everybody who initially starts with medical school would become a doctor. If everybody was supposed to run a podcast and do interviews and be, what's the media called? Be like the, I'm like an idiot. What's the dang first of it? The press, right? The press, the media, all of that. If everybody's supposed to be a pastor, then everybody would be. And that's a misconception of our society.
Right.
You cannot be everything you want to be because you know what? Just because you want to be a dump truck doesn't mean you're ever going to be a dump truck, right? You might be able to drive a dump truck, son, but you're not going to be a dump truck.
Right.
Because God has perfectly fit you and made you for a very specific thing.
Right.
And Mark Twain said this. The second most, I don't know necessarily that Mark Twain said. I know he said this, but I'm going to butcher what he said. He said something very close to this, right? But he said, the two most important times, the day you're born and the day you find out why. And that's powerful.
Yeah.
Why were you put here on this earth? Because I can tell you right now, I was not put here to be a mama. I was put here to be a daddy.
Right.
You know why? Because I got 3 beautiful little babies that call me
that
daddy.
need one.
And my wife was not put here to be a daddy. She was put here to be a mama. And that's powerful because she got 3 beautiful little girls that call her mama. And I was not put here to be a blonde-headed wife. You know why? Because I've got a blonde-headed wife who does a way better job at that than I could ever imagine doing. And she was not put here to be a husband because I do a way better job at being that husband than she could ever imagine being. And that all together as one builds one beautiful family that God has created. And if we could understand that in the United States of America, we could fix so many problems.
Much. Because it's taking it back to what you said earlier, just the simplicity. Like when you're out in the field, in the military, when you were a SEAL, you're like, to me, I'm the most free because you're pretty much taking it back to almost like an animalistic, or kind of just what we were made to do, the essentials.
Essentials.
Eat, stay hydrated, protect yourself, protect your family.
That's right.
You know, your team around you. And I think probably the success of your family is because you kind of maintain that simplicity even in y'all's roles.
Well,
as
it
husband, wife.
Sounds good as I talk about it. You know, my wife might argue. We don't always do well at it.
No one's
perfect.
But, you know, y'all are still together after, what did you say, 15, 16 years?
15 years. Hey, I think this December 16. Yeah.
You have 3 children that I think from what I said, it sounds like y'all have a pretty well-functioning family. It doesn't mean we're perfect. Just like you said, you know, you're a believer, you're a Christian, doesn't mean you're perfect. But you've taken it back, your family dynamics back to the simplistic original idea of what a family unit should be.
And that's what and that's what we should all do. Crime statistics go way down when you see an appropriate nuclear family put in place.
Right.
Doesn't matter what the demographic is. Doesn't matter if it's black, Hispanic, white. It doesn't matter. When you have a proper nuclear family, father, mother, kids, crime statistics go way down. Recidivism of drug issues go down. All of these things. Why? Because they can lean on the family to fix the problem. You don't need the government to fix the problem. The government actually increases the problem.
Right.
Because the government sucks at everything they do. And I'm telling you that as a federal agent with Homeland Security. I'm telling you that as a state agent with the state of Alabama. I'm telling you that as a guy who does a lot of government work. The government creates more problems than they fix. The nuclear family fixes more problems than they create.
But oftentimes it's not presented that way.